At jobs, the economy, stimulus talks, and much more. Let's welcome in now Seth Harris, who served as acting labor secretary in the Obama administration, and Douglas Holtz-Eakin. He is the former CBO director, now president of the American Action Forum. Gentlemen, it's nice to see you. Good morning. Doug, begin with you. As you look towards Washington and these stimulus talks, before we get to the jobs picture, what is it going to take to get a deal?
I really don't know how to answer that question. I actually thought they'd have a deal by now. They seem to remain quite far apart. Core issues on business liability on the Republican side, the UI benefit, and the funding for states on the Democratic side just haven't really seen much movement. And so when the core issues aren't getting closer to closure, there's not a deal on the table at the moment.
Yeah. Seth, do you see it the same way? Are we going to come to a deal within the next 24 hours, do you think?
I'm more optimistic than Doug is, but I think that we're in sort of an unprecedented time. The president and the Senate Republicans simply cannot leave Washington and go out and play golf without responding to the needs of the American people. There are small businesses that are closing permanently. There are American workers who are losing their jobs permanently. We're going to see a meaningful slump in the economy if that $600 supplemental unemployment benefit remains gone. It's gone now and stays gone. So I think that they're going to have to get to a deal, and in order for Republicans to get to a deal, they're going to have to swallow hard and give Speaker Pelosi and Leader Schumer what they want, and that's going to be tough, and about a third of the Republicans in the Senate won't be able to do that. But all those frontline Senate Republicans who are seeing really bad poll numbers right now are going to have to push Leader McConnell to agree with the Democrats and pass a bill.
The question, Doug, really is if they do get a deal, what, if anything, does it do for the job market? It's interesting. I saw an interview yesterday that Ted Cruz did with the Washington Post in which he, not surprisingly, assailed Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats, but also took aim at his own party, saying that the Republicans' own plans don't do much for the job market either.
Well, I mean, if you go back to what we now know about the initial downturn and how sharp it was from mid to late March, the core of it was a big decline in spending by affluent zip codes in America on services that involve personal contact. And that's just fear of the virus. And unless you address that fear, you don't really deal with the layoffs that came from that. Those were small businesses that employed relatively low-income Americans. They got laid off in large numbers. Many of those businesses aren't going to come back. There's nothing about the UI benefit or checks that directly addresses that problem. That's about, do employees feel safe to go to work? Do owners feel safe to open their businesses? And do customers feel safe to engage in commerce? That's the core issue. And all of this discussion about the money is really not addressing that problem.
Hey, guys, I don't know if you heard our debate in the last hour about the efforts that some GOP senators are now pushing to extend more loans or more support, I should say, to the airlines at the same time that this other bill is still up for grabs. How do you think that plays out? And how do you think the American public should think about that issue in relation to this? Doug?
Me? Well, I think on the merits, we know that the airlines are an important part of the supply chain, that the last thing this economy needs is more supply disruptions. Labor market supply has been a big problem. We've had other supply disruptions. So on the merits, you want to make sure the planes keep flying. What does that look like? It looks terrible. And I think there's going to be a lot of blowback if they fail to come to closure on some sort of support for the American household, but they can rapidly get to a deal on supporting America's airlines.
Do you think they should take a piece? Do you think they need a piece of the airline or some other structure to a deal like this?
I'm not a fan of this notion that somehow the government's going to nationalize the airlines or any other business. That's what you're doing, right? You take equity positions, you're de facto nationalizing it. That doesn't make any sense from a management point of view. It doesn't make any sense from a competitive point of view. And from a financial point of view, government.
But what about the shareholders? What do you think about advantaging the airline shareholders over basically every other shareholder group in America right now?
The case for the airlines is about the broader economy. It's not about the airlines. It's about making sure that the medicines that need to get shipped. There's a lot of cargo that's underneath those passenger airlines. So, that's the case. If that's an important part of keeping the economy in recovery, then you have to do it, and that's the reality of it.
Seth, how do you get the job market going again at the same time the virus is still spreading throughout significant parts of the country?
I think it's going to be extraordinarily difficult. The principal focus right now has to be a public health focus. We have to get the pandemic under control. We have to help employers to figure out how to keep their workplaces safe. We have to help consumers to feel safe when they go out and engage in commerce. Doug is exactly right about that. Fear is the leading economic indicator right now. People don't want to do business with one another because they're afraid of getting this horrible, deadly disease. So until we get the pandemic under control, we have rapid testing, contact tracing, personal protective equipment, really deep government involvement in helping people to understand what to do in this dangerous time. We're not going to be able to get the job market back into place. We're going to keep having these discussions about bailing out the airline industry, bailing out restaurants, bailing out other industries, because we're not going to be able to get people back to work.
You guys have a good day. We'll see what happens
Thank
down
you.
in D.C. today. And, of course,
Thanks,
jobless
Andrew.
claims a little bit later.